That was the kind of like queer granny side of me. The other side of me is running a queer porn film night.
Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm very excited because I have with me the extraordinary Ruby Rare, everyone. You may remember her from the video we did together where we talked about sending nudes.
Yep, very important.
The outtakes of that video, also excellent.
There's the photo of me just fully with my tits out.
Yeah, that's somewhere on my drive.
Yeah, same. Oh, memories.
So because I'm just going to be working part-time and also parenting for the moment, we thought it would be a really fun opportunity to get some guest hosts on the channel. I am so excited for this and I'm very excited that you said yes.
We're all here to like help carry the load, especially like, you know, you're being super mama right now.
It takes a village and
does.
all of that. But with a series like Pleasure Trove and me sharing like current events and things and also just like sexy faves, I am but one person who can only watch so many TV shows or read so many books. And so you are damn lucky. This is just a great opportunity to get other people on and see what they've been reading and listening to and their sexy recommendations as well. So I am thrilled and excited to be getting more voices onto this channel as well.
And I hope you like the things I've chosen.
I'm very excited to see it all.
I hope you like the things I've chosen.
Yeah. Be nice, people. And Ruby, take it away.
Let's get into it. Hi there, my name's Ruby Rare. I am a sex educator and I'm really excited to get into this episode of Pleasure Trove. Before we do, I just want to give a bit of information about me and what I do. I talk about sex and relationships from so many different angles, but most of them all kind of come from me being a queer, non-monogamous, dual heritage person, somewhat gender fluid, kind of figuring that out. So yeah, it's a lot of like queer perspective stuff. And I used to work for the charity Brooke, which is a wonderful sexual health charity. I'm now very proud to be one of their ambassadors alongside Hannah. And I went into schools, taught loads of sex ed, and now do lots of work with adults and still with young people, writing books and doing podcasty things and being silly on the internet, basically. I'm so excited to be hosting this episode of Pleasure Trove. Let's get stuck in. First up, we have news, and sadly, it's been quite a lot of bad news in the sexual health world over the last couple of months. You are probably aware of this already, but the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which happened in June, has been massively impactful, not only for people in the States, but all across the world. Now, for those of you who are not as aware, Roe v. Wade was a bill that was passed in 1973 by the Supreme Court in the US, and it legalized abortions, and it meant that all people had a right to access abortions, and that overturned a lot of the legislation in different parts of the United States that had bans on abortions, completely or in specific situations. We kind of knew that this was coming, like it felt like a big sort of looming hill in the sexual health world that like, I think the Supreme Court's about to overturn this, but I'm not gonna lie, even knowing that it was coming, when it finally was announced, my heart just completely broke. And I think loads of people, myself included, don't really know what to do with that news because it just feels so devastating. For those of us who believe passionately that access to safe and legal abortions is an essential part of sexual health and of our rights as humans, it's a really devastating blow that the US has now taken back this piece of legislation. And this also speaks to other parts of the world where this is happening. It's not just the US where there's a fight for abortion rights. I wanted to highlight Poland as a country that for a really long time has been struggling against like very, very strict abortion laws. And particularly since like 2015-16, there have been loads of protests in the country trying to encourage there to be like a bit more of an update with the legislation and give women and people with uteruses and wombs more rights to their own bodies. But sadly, that's not something that's happening anytime soon in Poland. And I know this is all really doom and gloom, but it feels like an important thing to talk about because I think for me, this is such a crucial part of sexual health. It can't always be the fun, sexy stuff. Obviously, the overturning of Roe v. Wade is going to impact all people in the States, but I think it's particularly important to highlight how impactful this will be for Black women. And to kind of counter the terrible news of this being overturned, I wanted to highlight a wonderful organisation that's doing really great work to support Black women in the States. In Our Own Voice is the National Black Women's Reproductive Justice Agenda, and they are an amazing organisation. They do do loads of sex education across the country, and they also collect donations and then distribute them to provide contraception and access to abortions and education to women all across the country. If you're interested in finding out more or donating, then we've put a link in the description. The next bit of news is also not great. There is still ongoing debate about conversion therapy being banned in the UK, and trans conversion therapy, or conversion therapy for trans folk, is still not being criminalised in the UK, which is bad because it feels really weird and messed up when conversion therapy for like other people within the queer community is being made illegal, but they're not trans. It leaves such a weird and like very blatantly transphobic message to the whole country, and shows that our leaders really don't care about the broadness of queer communities and protecting and upholding the rights of all of us. So that's still ongoing. Hopefully the next time that there's a Pleasure Trove episode, there'll be a bit more of an update on this. But for now, we're popping some resources in the description if you'd like to seek out some support around it. Some more positive news is Trans Pride, which happened a couple of months ago and was a really, really beautiful event happening in London. Trans Pride in London has been going on for about 4 years now, and it's a really incredible event. I went to the very first one and it was beautiful, but still like quite small, just in one square in Soho. And every year it has just grown bigger and bigger. And every year I think it feels more powerful and poignant to have so many people marching together and protesting for the rights of trans people. So this year there were over 20,000 people who attended. And if you are UK based, I really encourage you to come down to the next Trans Pride next year. It's a really important space to see fellow queer folks and allies like actually taking to the streets and protesting for the just basic care and respect and rights that all trans people deserve. I really recommend it. It kind of feels like what early Pride marches would have felt like back in the day, like in the first London Pride March was in the 70s, and that was a protest. And now I think lots of Pride events can feel a bit more like a party. Trans Pride has got that like real original feel to it. Next up, books. I've got 2 recommendations for books to share with you. Both of them I absolutely love. But the first one is The Sex Lives of African Women, which is by Nana Dakwah-Sekiyama. And I read this a couple of weeks ago and I really, really couldn't put it down. It was just a really beautiful collection of essays that she's collected over the years. And there are like 50 different women who speak in the book about their personal experiences with sex and pleasure and relationships. And all of them are from like Africa and the African diaspora. And so many different varied experiences come up through the book. I found this particularly interesting coming from a largely European background, where I think still now, today, it's such rubbish. But I think in the Western world, there's still this assumption that Africa is like one homogenous thing and it like just exists, rather than being like an incredibly varied continent. So as much as I would love to admit this wasn't the case, I learned so much in the book of just acknowledging how varied all these different experiences were. And I also really liked that Nana was able to balance between the really heavy stuff, because definitely there is a lot here about sexual violence and inequality and some really difficult stuff to read, but she balances that alongside moments of joy and curiosity and pleasure and exploration. And I really liked reading a book that kind of had all of that in one. Could not recommend it highly enough. And then if you're wanting to get really nerdy, we have the wonderful Losing It, which is by Sophia Smith-Gaylor. And actually, I think Hannah has it. Yeah, there you go. Ta-da! This is a book that is just wonderful. I am such a fan of Sophia's work. She's kind of pioneered TikTok journalism and sex education on TikTok. And I just think she's very cool, and I like how she does all of her things. But Sophia breaks down lots of these different myths, including virginity and consent and penetration. Obviously, consent's not a myth, but the myths that surround consent, and just looks at the state of sex education and expectations around sex today with this really wonderful critical lens. Also, cheeky little heads up, I believe Hannah will be interviewing Sophia for her podcast, Doing It Soon, so do keep an eye out for that. But yeah, could not recommend this highly enough. I really enjoyed it. Now for some events. Excuse me, I'm going to do a bit of shameless plugging here because I do want to talk about my own events. I hope that's okay, because I'm really excited. Recently I started my own event series which is called Sexy Sermons, and this is a bit of an iteration from the live events and talks that I was doing pre-lockdown, pre-pandemic. Remember that time back in 2018-19? I used to do monthly talks on loads of different topics, and I'm bringing them back in a slightly more finessed way. So I've now done 2 of these talks in London, and I'm going to start doing them a bit further afield. I also do them online as well. But if you are interested in learning about non-monogamy, threesomes, porn, bisexuality, being a slut and what it means to be a slut, and loads more, I talk about all those things quite a lot. So if you're interested in learning more, either come to a live event or check out an online one. I feel like I've come alive again doing talks and events in person. I'd missed it so much, and it's just a joy doing them again. So do check them out if you think that they would be up your street. Another event that I want to talk about, which is very close to my heart, is Margate Pride. So I live in Margate, which is a small seaside town off the coast of England. It's about like an hour and a half away from London, for those of you who are not aware of seaside town geography in England. One thing I love most of all about living in Margate is Pride. Our Pride is completely grassroots. It's kind of an arts festival and has a real kind of like activist community-led base to it as well, and there is no corporate sponsorship. It's the first time that I've gone to Pride events and there have been like no banks or restaurants with big floats being at Pride, which like I guess is nice that they're supporting, but it kind of takes the focus away from what this is all about. It's an amazing event, and so I really encourage you to check it out if you think that it might be your kind of thing. I'm doing 2 very silly things for Margate Pride, and they both really speak to 2 different parts of my personality. So I have organised a queer community quilt, which is massive. We had like 36 people making patches for this wonderful quilt, celebrating the things that we love about our queer community, and that's on display in Margate right now. And then I also have, that was the kind of like queer granny side of me. The other side of me is running a queer porn film night because I'm also quite filthy and smutty. So yeah, there's loads of different things that are going on. All of this will have happened by the time you're watching this, so go to my Instagram if you want to see how it went, and also check out the Margate Pride Instagram because it's very cute and wholesome. Podcasts. I love a podcast, and the one that I have been listening to non-stop for the last couple of weeks is Betwixt the Sheets, which is Dr. Kate Lister's podcast. She is an incredible historian. She's author of A Curious History of Sex, which is here, and has been on Hannah's podcast before. She's just an absolute babe, and this is a podcast where she talks about a different sort of sex-related topic every episode with a different historian. It's so juicy and interesting. If you want to learn about medieval sex, or the history of boob jobs, or the history of psychiatric treatment and how it's impacted sex, like there's so much there. I'm also doing a cheeky plug because I made a documentary for Radio 4 which is called The Virtual World of Sex Ed, and that's on the Radio 4 podcast series called Seriously, which is out now, and I think it's cute. I'm proud of it, so listen to that if you want as well. TV and film. I've got 2 recommendations for you. First is a TV show which is called AIDS: The Unheard Tapes. This is a BBC documentary that came out a couple of months ago, and it is absolutely phenomenal. It's heavy, not for the faint of heart, because it explores the HIV epidemic in the 80s and 90s and how detrimental that was to so many people. And they've done it through using all of these audio tapes of interviewing people with HIV or AIDS, and then have like got actors to perform those interviews again. It's really brilliantly done, and it's intercut with lots of archival footage, and really shows like the reality of what it was like living through that time. So if you watched shows like It's a Sin and were really curious to learn more about this time, I recommend it. It's pretty heavy going. And another criticism that I will give, although I think the show is kind of like aware of this, is that all of the archival footage and the people that they interviewed, it's very overwhelmingly white. I think at the time, the AIDS crisis was seen as a kind of gay male white issue, and obviously that was so not the case. It affected loads of different people, especially in terms of gender and race, but just as a heads up, that is kind of the lens that this documentary series is looking through. And a film that I've watched recently, which I can't say I enjoyed, but I thought was really, really important, is called Happening. This is a French film and it's set in the 60s. And I didn't actually realise that the laws around abortion were like so strict in France in the 1960s, but it was interesting to learn about them. I think because it was a very religious country, like abortion was so highly stigmatised and criminalised, and the film shows a young woman discovering that she's pregnant and not having any access to information and to medical support. And so kind of trying to figure out what she does to access an abortion throughout the film. Now, obviously, this is kind of relevant to what's happening in other parts of the world right now. So if you're interested, it's kind of good to explore that. But again, not for the faint of heart. This film is really emotionally challenging and also quite graphic in terms of showing the like physical and emotional pain that the main character goes through. So not one you're necessarily going to enjoy, but I think it's a very important, beautiful film. Finally, I want to share my new favourite sex toy. I can't end this pleasure trove without talking about something just indulgent and silly and sexy. And this is it. I'd like to introduce you to my new best friend. This is the NJoy Pure Wand, and you might have seen this. It's not like a new toy, it's just a new toy for me. These toys have been around for a very long time. They are made of stainless steel, and I can't describe to you how heavy they are. Like when this first arrived, I was surprised at just how heavy it is. It's an internal toy, and either side can be used for internal G-spot stimulation or prostate stimulation. And I think because it's metal, like it holds temperature so much better than other materials of sex toys. So if it's cold, it like stays really cold for quite a long time, and that can be exciting if you're into some kind of temperature play. And just the weight of it and the movement, it's less of a toy that you're using like going in and out, and more something that you're like rocking back and forth, if that makes sense. I can't speak highly enough about this. It's really fun, and I've known about these toys for a really long time, and I don't know why. They're quite expensive, and I've just kept putting off buying this, and finally I bought it for myself for my birthday, and I've never been happier. It's really great, and it's so nice knowing that like there's always more to explore when it comes to pleasure and sex toys, and I'm very much experiencing that right now with this wonderful guy. I think if anything, this is a non-binary toy. So there you have it. I really hope that you enjoyed my Pleasure Trove episode. If you'd like to find out a bit more about me, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I also have a mailing list. You can get the link of that in either of those bio descriptions, and that gives you a bit more information about the events that I'm doing that's coming up. I have a book. It's called Sex Ed, A Guide for Adults. I think it's quite fun and it looks really beautiful. Hannah's got a copy up there. And I have a podcast series, which is an 8-part docu-series called In Touch, that you can find on Spotify and wherever else you listen to your podcasts. But yeah, just a lot of stuff out in the world. Anyway, bye for now, and thank you so much for watching.